While sitting by the window seat, Setsu Suzaki gazes out with a look of gloom. You can already tell he's the protagonist just by his class seating. The peace and quiet is disturbed when his childhood friend, Yuhi Hanabashira, enthusiastically asks him about what he's up to. Instead of answering the question, Setsu tells her to stop interacting with him or else she'll start some pesky rumors. Not giving a damn, Yuhi ruffles his long hair and says that she doesn't care about rumors. Setsu gives her a light smile and begins to wonder about the other world. All of a sudden, a portal opens up in his class. While other students gaze at the otherworldly phenomenon with fright and nervousness, Setsu, on the other hand, smirks in delight. Within seconds, Setsu's entire class is transported to a different realm. Panic starts to grip the students when armor-cladded giants begin to infiltrate the area. As Yuhi embraces Setsu to shield him from the threat, the boy sends the enemy into the air with just the tip of his finger. The two then run to safety where they see a squad of knights fighting the demons. Staring at the bloodshed, Setsu thinks about how the war should have ended by now. A woman appearing in a knight's clothing sternly tells Setsu and Yuhi to find a safe harbor. Accompanied by a blonde-haired knight, the female soldier and the royal knights wreak havoc upon the group of demons. Later on, the students gather around under the presence of King Destina. After thanking them for arriving at such short notice, the king reveals that his kingdom is under the attack of demons. I think they would have already figured that out. The queen steps in and says that 5 years ago, a hero from another world came and brought peace to their world, Eclair, by ending the war. With that, the queen bows in front of the crowd and pleads with them to help their kingdom. Soon enough, these students begin their training under the royal knight Grain. Meanwhile, Setsu takes the liberty of exploring the castle grounds. While strolling around, he's caught by the senior knight, Iruka, who reprimands him for skipping his training. When Setsu addresses her in a casual tone, Iruka comments on how his carefree and selfish attitude reminds her of the hero from 5 years ago. With Setsu's refusal to continue training, Iruka decides to teach him a lesson by sparring with him. As Setsu dodges Iruka's attacks with ease, the girl realizes that she's in the presence of the infamous hero. With a sudden change of demeanor, Iruka falls to her knees and apologizes profusely for her mistakes. After a brief reunion with Iruka, Grain, and the mage Tia, the group questions Setsu about his new appearance and his disappearance from the battle 5 years ago. While recalling the fight with Toma, Setsu states how he doesn't know what happened, but he was reborn in a different world with all of his memories and power still intact. Later on, Grain informs Setsu that the king has declared war. With a somber smile, Setsu says that he has no choice but to stop the war once again. His friends assure him that they will accompany him in his perilous journey. Without leaving any room for arguments, Setsu tells them that they need to stay back and protect the castle in his absence. Before embarking on his journey, Setsu's friends help him steal his old weapon, Kurumaru. Just as he's about to leave, Yuhi rushes to confront him. As Setsu reveals the entire truth to her, Yuhi insists on accompanying him. Setsu tells her that he needs to go on this journey alone. Before parting ways, Yuhi gives him a new haircut with her magic. Little Rory watches her grandfather deal with a rude customer. Adamant to not sell a kid his valuable brooches, the man tells the boy to leave. Once the boy pulls out a bag filled with gold coins, the man immediately sells the brooch to him. Quick anime lesson: money can shut cocky old men up. After concluding business with the kid, Rory's grandfather tells her that while pride is important to a craftsman, money will always be an exception in any case. Some years later, with the death of her beloved grandfather, Rory sets out to execute a job bestowed upon her. All of a sudden, her carriage comes to a halt when a beast shows up in the middle of the road. As Rory tries to plead with the wolf, the hungry monster gives her a menacing growl. Just then, Setsu shows up in the middle of the jungle and rescues Rory from the wolf. Infamous protagonist Riz, showing up instantly when a cute girl is in danger. When Setsu extends a hand to Rory, she finds herself thinking about how the boy shares a resemblance to the buyer that showed up at her grandfather's shop years ago. Setsu then comments on how a person carrying goods shouldn't be traveling without guards. Rory explains to him that since she had to leave in a rush, she couldn't find anyone for the task. As Setsu bids her goodbye, Rory begs him to stay with her. When she tells him that she must deliver a valuable package, Setsu agrees to accompany her until they reach the port town. By sunrise, the two manage to reach the port town of Marsen. While looking at the dawn with excitement, Setsu comments on how the port town has grown bigger since the last time he saw it. Rory reveals to him that when the war ended 5 years ago, trade went up by a lot. Once Rory learns that she can't travel to the demonic continent, she falls to her knees in sadness. The shipman tells her that because of the war, no ship will take her to the demonic continent. As Rory begins to search for a transportation that will take her to said continent, a few knights start picking on her. When Setsu rushes to to her aid, the knights reach towards their swords but stop once the civilians begin to badmouth them. Before leaving, they tell Setsu that they will soon have their revenge. While talking to Rory, Setsu notices how the girl desperately wants to go to the demonic continent. He tells her that after resting tonight, he will help her get to the demonic continent. At the end, Rory shows Setsu the brooch made by her grandfather. Upon looking at it, Setsu realizes it's the same brooch that he casted magic on. Once the two fall asleep, the wicked knights make their way to attack Setsu and Rory. However, Setsu outsmarts them by escaping from the window with Rory safely tucked in his arms. Once he reaches the port, he calls upon the god Leviathan to transport them to the demonic continent. After reaching the shore of the demonic continent, Setsu introduces Rory to his friend, Levia, the god of the ocean. Once the brief introduction is wrapped up, Levia expresses her annoyance at being called after 5 years for transportation services. Our protagonist is so overpowered he uses a literal god as an Uber. Man. In order to appease the angry goddess, Setsu feeds her some deep-fried squid, then tells Rory that they have reached the demonic continent. Levia pitches in by informing her that the demon lord resides on the other side of the mountain called Evil Barrow. When Rory reveals that she has to give the brooch to a person called Desarte Serrano, Levia tells her that her recipient is none other than the demon lord Desarte. Upon learning that, Rory turns white as a ghost. When Levia turns to leave, Setsu stops to ask her if she will accompany them to meet Desarte. Still annoyed at Setsu, Levia tells him off. All of a sudden, a group of demon kids show up there at the scene, stating that Setsu has no clue about a woman's feelings, and no matter what, as a man, he should always apologize. In order to make the kids leave, Setsu gives them some squid rings made out of the squid monster. Delighted by its taste, the kids end up demanding more. Somewhere else, the denizens of the demonic continent wonder about how they'll continue trade with the squid monster that's haunting their sea. All of a sudden, Setsu shows up with the dead squid monster, stating that the monster is to be used for food. The town immediately breaks into the mood for festivities upon seeing said dead monster. From afar, the head of the Desarte's personal guard, Vlad, mistakes the glowing lights as an attack from the humans. Meanwhile, a tipsy Rory asks Levia about how she came to know Setsu. The goddess reveals that 5 years ago, when she lost the fight to Setsu, he demanded her help to help him finish the war. After ending the story, Levia says that she thought Setsu would be a famous hero on the continent. When Rory realizes that Setsu's the same hero who ended the war, well, she starts to panic. All of a sudden, Vlad frantically enters the town. When he sees everyone safe, he apologizes to Levia for his rude imposition. He then asks Setsu and Levia to help the demon lord as she's being married off to a man named Terran Sneeder, wealthy merchant who managed to put Desarte under a curse. When Setsu angrily asks Vlad why he's letting Desarte marry a villainous guy, Levia butts in by saying that it's all because she made a promise to hold peace for his sake. Upon learning this, Setsu makes up his mind to save Disaster from her ill fate. I just now realized that I've been reading her name wrong, and dyslexia be damned. When Disaster is informed about the troops of Destina invading the continent, she commands her officers to contact Destina first before resorting to violence. As her loyal officers rush to execute her orders, Disaster tells herself that no matter what, she will protect the peace treaty for Setsu's sake. 1 month goes by like this, and things start to appear grim for the demonic continent. As the ruler, Disaster grows apprehensive every minute. One day, Vlad informs her that Terran Sneeder, one of the Terran trading company, has requested an audience with her. After allowing him in, Terran arrogantly states that he can help her end the war. However, in return, he would want her to be his bride. And being able to see through his facade, Disaster tells him that she knows that he intends to have her as a slave. Terran then presents her a cursed necklace and states that the necklace will officiate their marriage. Out of options, Disaster tells Terran to give her some time to think. Later, Vlad comes to her chambers. He tells Disaster that she doesn't need to sell herself to a slavery contract, as her army will fight to death for her sake. With a helpless smile, Disaster tells Vlad to trust her as their sovereign head. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Terran excitedly tells a hooded man how his scheme will help him control the demonic continent while having a beautiful Disaster as his slave. On the day of her wedding, Disaster enters the church to sign herself off to the wicked merchant, Terran. As they're about to kiss, Disaster wishes to see Setsu just one last time. All of a sudden, with anime timing, Setsu appears through the window. With Levia's help, Setsu wreaks havoc. When the cloaked man tries to put up a fight, Setsu, being the overpowered protagonist of the show, kicks his ass. Once the man manages to escape, Disaster tearfully embraces Setsu. Later on, Setsu comes to the conclusion that Toma is behind this operation, and in order to stop him, he must secure the aid of Regulus, the king of the Beastmen. As kids, Yuhi thought of Setsu as a cold, scary boy, but after spending some time with him, she got to see a new kind shade of him. It didn't take Yuhi long to realize that she wanted to stay by Setsu's side forever. With a strong urge to protect Setsu, Yuhi practices her magic. Once the training is over, she rushes to ask Grain and Iruka about their relationship with Setsu. Iruka and Grain tell her that they consider Setsu as their companion and friend. Iruka adds that she longs to fight by his side. Yuhi then asks if they can give her special training so that she can stand by Setsu's side as well. While gazing at the landscape in front of her, Iruka states that Setsu has worked hard to protect the peace of this world. As his companion, she'll do what it takes to help him in his battles. Yuhi joins her determination and says that she will also stand beside Setsu. On that cue, Iruka commences Yuhi's training by sparring with her. During their duel, Iruka compliments Yuhi for her strength, but also tells her that there's something that she still lacks. She then takes Yuhi to a sewer. Iruka informs her that knights come to the sewer to fight off monsters. All of a sudden, a monster appears in front of them. Iruka orders the startled Yuhi to fight off the monster if she wishes to strengthen her powers. Adhering to Iruka's command, Yuhi fights the monster but hesitates to land fatal blows. Iruka then steps in and says that she lacks the determination to kill, which makes her weak. Later that night, Tia comes to Yuhi's room to patch her up. After a small pep talk, she exits her room and informs Iruka about Yuhi's well-being. The next day, Yuhi returns to the sewers with Iruka by her side. After incapacitating the monster, Yuhi confidently states that she will neither lose a fight nor resort to taking lives. Iruka smiles at her proudly and compliments her for her strength. While traveling to meet the king of the beastmen, Setsu meets an old friend called Crybaby Elise, accompanied by her younger sister, Aimer. Olivia then introduces herself to Levia by stating that she was Setsu's #1 pupil. When Setsu refutes her claims, Elise protests by saying that he taught her the fundamentals of combat every night. The topic then changes to Setsu asking Elise to join him and Levia in the expedition to the Beastmen continent. Elise sadly reveals that she can't do so because of her current situation. She then reveals that when she took the job for executing a dragon, she had the fortune of meeting Aimer. While staying with Aimer, the two grow fond of each other and formed a bond of sisterhood. Then while hunting the dragon, she realized that villagers have started to vanish. Soon, she was left alone with Aimer. While she was inspecting their disappearance, she ended up running into Setsu's caravan. And so, after agreeing to help Elise, Setsu comes to the conclusion that the villagers were teleported somewhere else using transportation magic. He then points to Aimer as the culprit for the disappearances. With her disguise ruined, Aimer turns into a dragon and tries to attack Setsu and his friends. Once Elise finishes off the dragon, Levia and Setsu take their leave. Later on, when Elise returns to the village, she finds Aimer alive. While confronting her, Elise learns that Aimer's real name is Meluar, and she's a monster master that creates monsters out of people for Toma. In the port city of the Beast Continent, a young beastling by the name of Shironeko gets lauded with fruits and gifts by the local beast folk. After humbly accepting the love and gifts showered her way, Shironeko is greeted by eager kids who ask her to teach them moves to fight demons. Shironeko instantly tells the kids that fighting demons is her job, and kids should enjoy the carefree days of childhood while they can. After reaching home, Shironeko places the items on the ground and calls for her sister, Mineko, who immediately comments on Shironeko's popularity. All of a sudden, Mineko breaks into a coughing fit. After giving her medicine, Shironeko assures a helpless Mineko that she'll make everything right. In the meantime, Setsu and Levia arrive at the port city of the Beast Continent. The two decide to fill their bellies and rest for the night. Shironeko, on the other hand, buys more medicine for Mineko. Upon expressing her gratitude to the owner, Miss Kiroinu tells Shironeko that when she sees her working so hard for Mineko, she can't help but root for her. She then hands Shironeko a picture of Setsu and tasks her to assassinate him. Just then, Setsu walks in with Levia and asks for an inn and a place to eat. After side-eyeing Setsu, Shironeko plans her move. Once Setsu and Levia are fast asleep, Kuroinu opens the door for Shironeko to launch her attack. Before letting Shironeko in, she asks if she has cold feet. With determined eyes, Shironeko assures Kirinu that she is ready for the task. She continues by asking Kiruinu if they can all live together after she finishes off Setsu. After all, it was because of Kiruinu that she and Mineko were able to fend for themselves. Kiruinu lovingly pets Shironeko Shiraneko and tells her that she can call her big sister. After the heartfelt conversation, Shiraneko attacks Setsu. Once a fight ensues between the two, Setsu asks her if she's been set by Toma. Shiraneko denies the statement and states that she has her own personal reasons to take his life. As expected, Shiraneko passes out while fighting with the overpowered hero. Upon regaining consciousness, Shiraneko finds herself at home. Minako informs her that Setsu and Levia brought her back. After thanking Setsu for sparing her life, Shiraneko learns that Minako is under the influence of a powerful curse. As Setsu works to break Minako's curse, the group is attacked by none other than Kiro Inu. Shiraneko immediately shields Setsu from the attack, which enrages Kiro Inu, while Levia steps in to face Kiro Inu. After an intense fight, Levia manages to overpower her opponent. When she asks Kiro Inu what Toma is planning, Kiro Inu remains loyal to her master by staying quiet. A wounded Shiraneko appears before Kiro Inu and asks how she could do such a heinous thing. Kiro Inu scoffs and tells Shiraneko that she makes her sick. Before disappearing, Kiro Inu reveals that Toma wants to become a god and perish every race. With Minako cured, the two sisters embrace each other. Setsu informs Levia that he found the same cursed necklace in Disaster. The next day, Levia and Setsu set out for the capital to meet the Beast King. On the way, they're greeted by Shiraneko and Minako, who express their wish to accompany the two in their mission. In a glimpse of the past, it's revealed that Setsu once dueled the young princess Roa, who initially refused to acknowledge him as her master. Accepting the challenge, Setsu agrees to do battle with the princess of the Beastmen. In the present day, Setsu tries to tell the guards that he knows Regulus, the king of the Beastmen. After getting told off by the guards, Shiraneko and Minako nervously say that they thought they were getting famous. All of a sudden, Roa comes rushing towards Setsu. After sniffing him, she asserts that he is indeed the beloved hero that once saved the world. She then tries to sneakily attack Setsu, but fails. However, she compliments Setsu by telling him that she didn't accept anything less from his future master. While still keeping Roa in his grasp, Setsu cheerfully states that he won't take her as a disciple. All of a sudden, Setsu's attacked by the Jolly King, who, like his daughter, says that he expected nothing less from the powerful hero he fought alongside. Later on, Regulus delightfully says that they should hold a feast. Before his plans can take action, Setsu says that he has urgent matters to deal with. Understanding the subject, Regulus asks if it's about the war between humans and demons. Confirming his doubts, Setsu discloses that Toma is alive and plans on annihilating everyone. Upon hearing that, Regulus announces that he can't sit idle as Toma wreaks havoc. Setsu tells Regulus that he should remain in the country as a backup. All of a sudden, commander of the Zu Dorado army, Roga, walks in. He claims that since humans are their sworn enemies, they shouldn't spare Setsu. Roa intervenes, but her efforts get shut down by Roga, who says that Setsu disappeared for 5 years, and there's no telling if he's still on their side. And so, in order to determine which side is correct, Roga challenges Setsu to a duel. With high spirits, Regulus announces that whoever wins shall be betrothed to Roa. At night, Roa comes to warn Roga about Setsu's abilities. Roga assures her that he has a shot at winning. Apparently, a mage gave him a magic rune that converts strong will into strength. The next day, a crowd gathers in an arena to witness the match between Setsu and Roga. The crowd cheers Roga on as he transforms into a beast. After taking a beating from Setsu, Roga doubles up on power. Levio, watching the scene, realizes that Roga is under Toma's curse. Just when Setsu's about to free Roga of the curse, Toma's illusion appears before him. He addresses Setsu by saying that he didn't want him to waste his power on someone like Roga. When Roa tries to intervene, Toma berates her for interrupting his conversation with Setsu. Setsu tells Toma off, which upsets him. He says to him that only he can make him happy. In a deranged delight, Toma announces that he'll kill everyone so he and Setsu can have a quiet life as gods. And with that, he disappears. As Roga dies on the spot, Setsu announces that he'll journey to the demon continent in order to stop Toma. In a flashback, years ago, when Setsu was summoned to Destinia for the first time, Toma was with him. It turns out Toma and Setsu worked together in becoming strong after being forced to fight against demons and other species. Once the two became friends, Setsu tells Toma to help him stop the war. Inspired by Setsu's encouraging words and his claim of thinking of him as a brother, Toma agrees to be by his side. However, one day, Setsu decides to bid Toma farewell and departs by stating that if he wants to stop the war, he must see the world for himself. Toma nods in understanding but promises to join Setsu once he's strong, like him. Years go by. Toma finally gets acknowledged as the Silver Demon. One day, while seizing a temple, Toma comes across a pendant radiating dark powers. Somehow the darkness manages to allure him by bribing him with power. In the end, Toma succumbs to the darkness and kills his own comrades. During his dazed-up state, Toma is informed of a ceasefire. Surprised by the news of peace, he stumbles upon a caravan carrying none other than his beloved Setsu. Upon reaching the castle, Toma sees Setsu being praised and surrounded by a lot of people. The crowd roars in happiness and declares Setsu as the hero who saved everyone from the war. During a celebration party, Toma comes to Setsu and compliments him for his bravado and determination, and he tells Setsu that he's found a way to return to their home. Setsu immediately takes off, saying that he has a lot to explore. Heartbroken and abandoned by Setsu, Toma begins to cry bitter tears. The darkness of the necklace begins to feed on his misery, provoking him to take action. All of a sudden, Toma raises his sword against Setsu and states that he'll kill every distraction in Setsu's life. As Setsu and Toma spar with each other, Setsu desperately tries to tell Toma to snap out of it. In response, Toma only cackles like a madman. The intensity of their fight causes an explosion which results in Setsu's disappearance and Toma winding up alone. Lost in sorrow, the pendant shows him a glimpse of people suffering in the world. Their pain resonates with Toma, which urges him to rescue them. After rescuing the prisoners, Toma asks them to join him as he destroys the world. The mighty army of Destinia sets foot on the demon continent. Their determination to eradicate any demon that poses a threat to humanity burns fiercely. Simultaneously, Tia, Eureka, and Grain trace Toma's powerful magic to the very heart of the demon continent. However, despite their knowledge that Toma is responsible for all the wretchedness, the trio find themselves unable to reveal the truth as their comrades will label them as spies for the demon army. Yui joins the group by telling others to have faith in Setsu. Filled with hope, Grain and Eureka chime in together that until Setsu arrives, they should do their best to buy him time. Tia tells Yuhi that they must prevent casualties at all costs. Once the battle begins, both parties attack each other with equal force. When Yuhi notices her comrades trying to take the life of an injured demon soldier, she tries to stop them. All of a sudden, an unseen voice mocks Yuhi for her nobleness. With that, a multitude of armor-cladded monsters are spawned out of thin air. When the group notices Elise fighting the crowd, they learn that armor has turned her into a puppet. As the monster master pits Elise against her friends, she simultaneously creates evil monsters for the group to fight. Once Eureka, Grain, and Tia slay the monsters and neutralize Elise, Eureka goes on to pierce Aimer's magic organ. Despite being severely injured, Aimer rises up, revealing that her body has been modified. She goes on to tell the shocked group that she, along with her comrades, were experimented on, and that's why they'll destroy the world under Toma's command. With that, Aimer channels her hatred and creates a deadly chimera. Just when the group's about to succumb, Elise rises up to the task of slaying her once beloved sister, Aimer. Before the group can relax, another loyal servant of Toma arrives. Yuhi decides to step up and face Kagero. Despite her friend's hesitance, Yuhi takes charge. However, before she can fight, Setsu appears like the badass hero he is. Upon seeing Setsu, Yuhi immediately pounces on him. As she starts to express her happiness to see him, Setsu tries to back away. Realizing they're in public, Yuhi immediately apologizes for her behavior. She then tells Setsu that she's been practicing well under Eureka. With that, she gets on all fours and asks Setsu to take a seat. Setsu flicks Yuhi and states that he doesn't need another masochist. After a heartfelt reunion, Setsu comes face to face with Kagero, who confesses that ever since their encounter in Disaster's Palace, he has longed for the opportunity to confront Setsu once more. When Kagero asks why he wants to protect his weak friends, Setsu states that he doesn't care about strength or status. He protects his friends because they're precious to him. Kagero interprets Setsu's answers as a luxury that only a few can afford. Upon claiming to destroy the world, Setsu charges towards Kagero. Meanwhile, Kuroino is confronted by Shironeko and Minako. As Shironeko tries to talk some sense into her, Kuroino cackles wildly and berates Shironeko for her naivety. She tells the sisters that if they truly think of her as an older sister, they'll die without resisting. Fair enough. Refusing to accept Kido-Inu's terms, Shironeko and Minako combine their attacks to fight her. However, when Kido-Inu manages to apprehend the two sisters, she goes on to mock their concept of sisterhood. Hurt by Kido-Inu's words, Shironeko and Minako unleash their full power. As Kido-Inu dies, she thinks about her younger sisters. On the other hand, Bullados, another lackey of Toma, wreaks havoc upon the demon soldiers. Fortunately, Roa comes to the rescue, allowing the soldiers to retreat. When Bullados reveals that he's made of iron, Roa calls him a freak. He reveals to her that he was experimented upon by humans, and throughout his childhood, he endured many torturous procedures. When Bullados tries to provoke Roa by mentioning Roga, she instantly rushes to attack him. During the fight, Roa unleashes her full power but ends up receiving fatal wounds. Acknowledging her straightforwardness and pride, Bullados heals Roa's body. During his final moments, Roa acknowledges Bullados and his pride. Meanwhile, Kagero loses to Setsu. Before perishing away, he thanks Setsu for granting him salvation. Levia and Disaster are greeted by a vengeful Toma in Disaster's castle. Setsu immediately rushes to their safety, which makes Toma's jealousy flare up. As he raises his sword against Toma, Setsu tells him that there's no point in talking sense into him. Being the yandere boy he is, Toma states that once he kills everyone, they'll have plenty of time to chat. Once the grand battle rages on, Setsu's friends appear to cheer him on. Noticing that everyone is safe, Setsu tells Toma to just surrender, as all his friends are dead. Toma bitterly grits his teeth in anger while recalling all the moments he was abandoned by Setsu. He angrily tells Setsu that he's always leaving him behind. With enough rage, Toma unleashes his dark magic. He tells Setsu to put an end to this, as he doesn't want any more despair spreading across the world. Out of bounds, Toma launches an attack on Setsu's precious friends. Luckily, they managed to create a safety bubble in time. As Setsu launches an attack on him, Toma refuses to give in. He fosters all of his hatred, allowing him to rise up in action once more. As Setsu falls down, Toma appears before him. He smirks devilishly while thinking about how he managed to win against the Setsu, who had always been ahead of him every step of the way. All of a sudden, Setsu wobbles up on his feet and uses dimensional magic against Toma. As the walls begin to close in on Toma, he desperately cries that he doesn't want to die alone. After fading away into unconsciousness, Toma wakes up with Setsu by his side. He tells him that he never intended to kill him. He just wanted to destroy the curse. Upon hearing that, Toma begins to weep. Later on, the authorities reach a decision for Toma's punishment. Setsu informs him that once he sends all his classmates back to their world, he'll be stripped of his powers. After abiding by the punishment, Toma decides to part ways with Setsu, telling him that he'll travel the world just like he did. And with that heartfelt ending, that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.